Welcome to this new episode of What is New in the World of Blockchain. My name is David Orban, and I am Managing Advisor of Beyond Enterprises. We have around us a frantic wave of innovation in so many different areas that involve blockchain, both in the base layers, what is going on in Bitcoin itself or Ethereum, but also at secondary or tertiary layers, layer 2, layer 3 applications. And these innovations allow us to explore and experiment applications that provide benefit to specific target audiences of blockchain solutions. Today's guest is a representative of a specific area of innovation around blockchain in NFTs that have very specific characteristics. And we will talk about it now with Andrew Prell, who is the CEO of Silica neXus. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thank you, David. Good to see you again.
Thank you very much for being here with us. And, what I like to do with our guests is to have them tell a little bit about themselves before we go into the specifics of their current project. So tell me, when did you get into Bitcoin and blockchain, and why? What was it that got you excited?
Well, to get into the why and that, we have to kind of go back into ancient history. I've been in video games since literally I was 12, and I'm 55 now. Okay, so I got into virtual reality in 1988 with Autodesk. I created the first U.S. manufactured virtual reality arcade system, second one in the world, to WNWB out of England back in 1992. I wrapped that around, or created that system, that arcade system, around Wolfenstein. I created Wolfenstein VR and then made it multiplayer for CyberTag. So that got me into video games pretty heavily way back when. And then when Facebook bought Oculus for an obscene amount of money, back in 2014, my old VR team came to me. It was kind of a funny joke for us, but then we started researching what was going on in the game industry and decided it was time to reimagine the entire video game ecosystem, and knock down all the walled gardens, get rid of all the fraud and theft going out there. So we basically are creating this comprehensive ecosystem with this blockchain backbone as a tool to secure all the digital assets for the players. And that's what got us interested in working on it. I'd actually learned about Bitcoin and blockchain back in 2010, 2011 in San Francisco. It was funny that Jared Kenna tried to talk me into using Bitcoin as a point system in Startup Icon TV. And I was trying to tell him I couldn't afford a quarter a point. And he was like, no, you can break it up into these little bitty Satoshis. So I wish I had gotten heavily into it back then, obviously.
Yeah, and the secret is, of course, turning knowledge into action. So what I hope, and what maybe you hope, is that people who are following your project will do that. They will not only get excited about what Silica neXus enables them to do, but actually go ahead and do it. So from your desire to profoundly redesign the video game ecosystem to the current stage of Silica neXus and the platform, where are we in your vision? maybe on your roadmap? Are we at 10% or 60%? The more ambitious it is, of course, the more steps there are going to be.
Well, to complete our vision, we're talking probably 10 years down the road from now. However, in our pursuit of it, because remember, we wanted to marry the consumer game industry to the out-of-home entertainment industry and get rid of all of the walled gardens in between. And we were using the blockchain to secure the digital assets for the players in between all of those games. Well, in doing so, we found some very unique aspects of NFTs. Because we're moving the video game item out of the video game to put it on the blockchain, and we do it as an NFT. Well, we've pretty much figured out how to remove customer acquisition costs from video games using their items as NFTs. Now, just to give you a sense of what this means, because we stumbled into it. It was kind of like an aha moment that just blew our minds. Customer acquisition costs or player acquisition costs in video games are the majority of a video game's budget. When I say majority, it's well over 50%, and in some games up to 99% of their budget is player acquisition costs.
So would that be traditionally labeled as marketing costs, right? It's part of the marketing budget?
Marketing budget is part of that. It's everything that goes into getting a player into the game and spending their first dollar. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it is marketing costs, definitely. A lot of, to think of it very simply, you can think of marketing costs, but it goes a lot more than that. Trade shows, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of other stuff that's purely the customer acquisition costs on the balance sheet. Mm-hmm. To give you an example, Machine Zone spent about $200,000 to make to develop a cell phone game, and $44 million to make it one of the top sellers. That is 99.5% player acquisition costs out of their budget. And what we figured out is once you make a game, to create more items for that game is effectively free. So if we could put them on the blockchain and somehow trade them in to get a player for the game, then they're not really spending any money to get those players. So then when you add that to human nature, David, what do you do when you get a new toy?
I just open the box and start enjoying it. Hopefully batteries included.
You want to play with it. How do you play with a video game item? You play with it in the game. Mm-hmm. So if we can figure out a way to get you to choose this NFT video game item over something else, then you're pretty much guaranteed to play with it. If you don't have the game, you have to download the game to play with it. So then the question becomes, where in the world can you find hundreds of millions of players at the ready to choose these NFTs over something else without changing user behavior? As it turns out,
I wouldn't know, but maybe you do.
Marrying the consumer game industry to the out-of-home entertainment industry. In the out-of-the-home entertainment industry, before COVID, there were 500 million players each and every month that were trading tickets in the arcades, points in the arcades for prizes they know suck. You played skee ball, you win all the points and tickets, you go trade them in for the 8-year-old Tootsie Roll or the pencil eraser. Well, we're putting in these digital vending machines, our prize neXus, into the arcades so they would vend NFTs to somebody's cell phone. We can look at some of the different games on there. I don't know how well it's coming across, but
yeah, we can see it.
Yeah, so you add it to cart, grab a different game, a Reality Clash, one of my favorites. Add it to cart, and then you just buy now, and you can buy it with your tickets out of that you've won in the arcade, Now you have these video game items. So we use the videos of the games to attract the people in there to trade the tickets for prizes that they love. So our competition is the 8-year-old Tootsie Roll. After the person has already spent their money and is in a kind of a pressure situation to pick out what they spent their money on because mom's yelling at them to come get in the car, it's time to go. Now I got to choose something. Oh, this is a real sexy video game over here. Looks really cool versus the 8-year-old Tootsie Roll or the vampire teeth. Let me get that video game item and leave. Now that he's got it, he's got to download the game to play with it.
Very interesting. So the transaction happens in the physical world, in the physical arcade, and then the person acquiring the digital item goes home and enhances their ability to play a video game of their choice because of that. Now there are many questions, and I don't know where to start. First of all, Silica neXus is a platform for achieving this experience. So your customers are the game developers so that they can incorporate this into their games. Is that correct?
That's part of our customers. We actually have the game developers create the assets, and what they want from us are the players. The locations of the arcades, okay, have the players, and what they want from us is the prizes that the players want, prizes that don't suck, basically. So we've got that, and then the players want better prizes for their points, their tickets. So we basically have 3 separate customers that we bring together in all of this.
And tell me about your own business model. Where does Silica neXus actually end up making revenues and profits?
We effectively sell NFTs to the players. We make our profits off of the transactions of the NFTs going to the players through our system. So if you create NFTs and put them on our platform in our marketplace, not in the arcades, but in our marketplace, we'll take our percentage every time you sell a brand new NFT into the marketplace. Okay, and in our marketplace we have a shop where NFT manufacturers sell NFTs to the customers.
Is there something you would like to share, a screen share where you can show it?
All right, hopefully.
Yep.
Let me switch over to my screen share, I think. It's not, what was it? There we go.
Control something, the number.
I've got it.
There you go. Okay.
All right. So here we've got, this is our Gen 1 interface. We're about to come out before the end of the year with Gen 2. So the look and feel has been totally redone to more modern. But effectively, we've got a shop in here to where people can go and buy new NFTs. And like we can go in for like Fortnite. And here we're making gift cards, like 10 $25, $100 gift cards into NFTs. So like, I'll just buy that right now. And that goes straight into my trade binder. And we call it a trade binder because, these are like cards, like Magic the Gathering cards. And who would put a card into their wallet? So you would destroy a expensive card in the wallet. So we call it a trade binder because this is very similar to something like trading Magic the Gathering cards. All right. And then you notice I bought this Fortnite gift card, and this is one of the cool things that we did. This is now a full NFT. You can transfer it outside of the Silica neXus. You can sell it in our auction house. So that in the auction house is players selling NFTs to other players. You can make it tradable, and then you can reveal the code. So let's hit reveal the code. Once you reveal the code, you can't trade it anymore because it's used. It's effectively burnt. That makes sense to you? So imagine this on your cell phone. That would take up your whole cell phone screen. You just take your finger in, you scratch it off. It's a scratch.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So then once you scratched it off, you've revealed the code. You can no longer trade it. All right. But more than that, when we go back to the dashboard, so the auction house is players trading with other players. Binder is all your assets. The shop is companies selling the new NFTs to the players. But the trade zone is trading between players. Are you familiar with what's called atomic swaps?
Yes, but let's explain it a little bit for the people who are watching.
One of the big problems that we've seen is currently buying and trading NFTs. You're trading them one at a time. Okay. An atomic swap is swapping, 1,000 NFTs with 1,000 NFTs. So I'm looking at somebody else's trade binder right now. I'm going to say start the trade chat. He's got some stuff I may want. So I'll hit start trade chat. Now I have to toggle over to the other window because I'm actually the person that's being traded with. And here in a second, it says, do I want to accept this trade? From the other window. Are you seeing both windows? When I swap back and forth, you see the accept deny
Yeah,
now?
yeah, we are seeing it, yes.
Okay, so now I'm going into the trade, and here's everything that the other person has for trade, and here's everything that they're asking for. So I can say I want this, I want this, I want this, and I'll take that Roblox. So I want 4 of these NFTs, which would have to be done on every other system one at a time and take several minutes to an hour each and cost about $40 a piece, correct? To trade. That's how much gas fees are on Ethereum right now.
Yeah.
Now, when I just toggled over to the other screen, he says, okay, this is everything that he's got for trade, and this is what he's wanting. Well, I'll take this, and a Fortnite card and a Blizzard card. So that's what I want. Well, that's not a good valid trade. So this guy's going to say, well, also give me, say, 1,500 droids, and it's a deal. So he's going to hit request droids. Let me make sure he's got 1,500 droids. I think we do. Don't. It says 15. Okay, so those are the things he's asking for. I'm going to try to say finish trade. There's a chance that I asked for too many droids and might not have them in the other account. So we'll hit finish trade. He says finish. Should pop up and say waiting for the response from the other player. Do I accept this trade? Is this good for me? Now, an atomic swap, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 NFTs on one side, swapping for 4 NFTs and some crypto on the other. All right. How long should that take?
Well, it would take a long time, and instead here
I hit accept trade, and it's done. That's an atomic swap. It just swaps. When both sides agree to the transaction, it's over with.
Very nice. So is Droid the native token of Silica neXus?
Yes, the droids are our token. We minted them back in. Here, I'm going to stop sharing now because I don't know that we need to do that.
Yep, that's fine.
And
we can see you.
Not getting back to you.
We can see you just fine if you keep talking, and then you can take your time finding the right window so that you can see yourself.
There we go. It's throwing me off. Sorry about that. All right. So, we minted them back in May of 2018. So May the 4th be with you. These are the droids you're looking for. But we realized that we didn't want to go through and do any marketing and put them on any of the exchanges until we had an organic demand on it. Because video games have had virtual economies for 30 years. We've had virtual items, virtual economies, and real world value for 30 years. And one thing that we've learned is, if you don't have an organic demand and you try to build it all up off of hype, then a pump and dump effectively happens. and you lose your credibility and your entire audience forever. And there's pretty much no coming back from that. So we're getting to the point in the next, by the end of the year, that we should have our system up and going, organic demand being developed out of the arcades and off of our marketplace. And that's when we'll put our crypto on the exchanges.
So the various branded collectible NFTs, tradable, swappable NFTs that you showed are for demo purposes, or you do have the codes already in your warehouse, in your digital warehouse, for the games that you showed?
The games that we
Fortnite.
showed, we are allowed to do the game cards currently. The game cards, the gift cards for those. So we will have those in our system. Those will be in our system. So you'll get the Fortnite, the Roblox, things of that, gift cards. And that is a stepping stone to get up to hopefully eventually getting them on board with having the game assets, because that's what we really want. That's the holy grail for us, is to get the game assets out of something like a Fortnite, Roblox, that kind of thing. That's bringing hundreds of millions of players onto the blockchain.
And obviously Fortnite is one of the best selling games, and you can list the top developers. Do you believe that the right strategy for you is to target those? If not, if yes, how are you gonna gain their attention? And if no, what is the right characteristic, in your opinion, of the kind of game developer or game publisher that you can efficiently acquire so that you can put assets on the kiosks?
Our strategy lies around our player acquisition engine. The majority of every game's budget, Fortnite included, the majority of every game's budget is player acquisition.
It is your promise that you are improving that player acquisition. Am I correct? Or in order for this to happen, you have to have thousands of kiosks in the arcades?
Correct. Actually,
and how are you going to achieve that?
We showed this system off at a show called IAPA in 2019. Okay, we went to IAPA. It's the largest trade show in North America for out-of-home entertainment. Disney goes there, Dave & Buster's goes there, Chuck E. Cheese goes there, etc. There was over 40,000 locations represented at that trade show, 26,000 buyers. We were stuck way off in the back. We expected to leave there because this is brand new technology that was going into an industry that is scared of new technology, I will say. And we expected to leave there with a demand, with about 10 to 15 locations signed up to try out this new crazy technology. We left there with a demand for over 6,000 locations. Blew our minds. We were installing the first ones. We planned on installing the first ones with the largest operator in the world. I'll just leave it at that right now. Their CTO got involved, which slowed us down. So we went to install into a different location. One of the bigger ones, one of the best arcades in the world, was up in New Rochelle, New York. I was installing the kiosks personally with a couple other guys. February 27th of 2020 in New Rochelle, New York, which just happens to be the week of the outbreak, at the epicenter of the outbreak. Literally, New Rochelle, New York was when it was first. Anyway, that the next week, the whole world shut down. So we know that we've hit the right chords and the right button in the out-of-home entertainment industry. We just have to deliver now. So We went back to the drawing board during COVID, found a lot of things to innovate on and to change, and we came up with the scratch offs, which is one of the big demands that they wanted. They wanted something out of the hottest games out there. So we came up with all that, and we should be installing these things again come the end of the year. So, or worst case, first quarter of next year into those arcades. So we have to put in the way they want to do it is realize that these guys have hundreds of, the big ones that we're working with have hundreds of locations. We'll install the first 10, operate them for about 2 months. And then from that, they'll give us the rollout schedules on how they want to deploy into the rest of the locations.
And what is the economics? Because, it could go in many different ways. They could pay for the kiosk and then very little or no royalty on the NFTs, or the kiosks could be free and there's a split, or actually you could pay them to rent the space where you put the kiosk, and then they would see no royalty from the sales, and you would have all the upper hand as long as the kiosk is there and you keep paying the rent. So out of these three possibilities and anything in between, which do you believe is the best way to go now?
We removed all the friction, every bit of the friction. There's no reason for them not to put these in there. The machines go in for free. Okay, where we make our money, you got to understand the arcade industry. All right, like Dave & Buster's. Let's just break down Dave & Buster's off of their annual reports. Okay, Dave & Buster's, 58% of their revenue, approximately, it may have changed this year, but 58% of the revenue comes from the arcade side of the business. Okay, the rest of it is the restaurant and alcohol. So out of that 58% of the revenue, okay, of that 58% of that, 75% of that 58%, 75% of that comes from what's known as redemption. Okay, and redemption is the machines that shell out the points and the tickets that get redeemed for prizes. Okay, so 78% of that business is the redemption. Out of every dollar that they receive in a redemption machine, 25 cents approximately, each arcade's a little different, but rule of thumb is 25% goes out in prizes. We're competing for that 25%. Okay, in the form of Dave & Buster's, they on an annual basis spend about $1.2 million per Dave & Buster's in prize support. We're competing for that $1.2 million per Dave & Buster's. So we put in a kiosk, and if we get, our testing has shown without modifying anything, with just putting it in the blank, we'll get 30% of that business on minimum. So we put in a kiosk into a Dave & Buster's, and we should be pulling a lot of money off of
it. Establishing a relationship with the consumer is very expensive, as you just illustrated with that incredible split between game development cost and game user acquisition cost. Given that, are you also enabling any direct way for the consumer to keep interacting? Let's say they acquired a certain number of NFTs, they go home, and then they say, oh, I want to trade more, or I think this card is going to be valuable, I want to keep in my drawer for 3 months, but I don't want to go back to Dave & Buster's to do that. The interaction was great with Silica neXus. I want to do it on Silica neXus. Is it frictionless for them, or is it something that they have to sign up separately, and so you have once again the problems?
Okay, we onboard them with the arcades. That's our onboarding ramp, pretty much. That's how they get to know us. All right.
Yeah.
We've got the player acquisition engine has one back end with three front ends, effectively. The Prize Nexus system that sits in physical locations that we're starting out in the arcades and can grow from there to any public location. They leave that kiosk with the NFT on their cell phone, which is in our mobile app, okay, our trade binder app, as we call it, okay. And then that gets them to the web, effectively, where there we have what I just showed you was the online marketplace, which is a marketplace, auction house, trade zone, and their trade binder all in one interface. So once they sign up and we get them in from a Dave & Buster's or a Chuck E. Cheese or whatever, then they can trade these items back and forth with other people on the system that got in through, say, maybe you got in through Dave & Buster's, somebody else got in through Chuck E. Cheese, and somebody else gets in through Time Zone. You all still can trade assets back and forth with each other.
And you can acquire more without having to go back to the location necessarily.
Exactly. But the beautiful part is they can now trade their assets around. And we just announced Dave & Buster's has a special NFT from Fortnite, supposedly. I mean, I'm making all this up, that you can only get this week at Dave & Buster's.
Yeah.
You're going to have people jumping on airplanes to go to Dave & Buster's.
Very, very interesting. So the bridge between the physical and the digital world of entertainment, of course, benefits from virtual reality, augmented reality, the headsets that we and you had many years ago experimented with in waves of enthusiasm, and definitely we can say in the past disillusionment. And now we are looking at a new wave of enthusiasm with the various VR headsets. Oculus is probably today the most important. The biggest letdown was what's the name? Magic Leap, which got $4 billion and ended up with nothing, right? So say what can you do with a lot of money and really do nothing? Amazing. Just amazing.
But so, you saw their TED Talk, I take it.
That's right. And some simulated whales jumping out of basketball courts. So what is your expectation around the interaction of out-of-home entertainment, VR, AR, and NFTs?
Okay, so we've been talking about our short-term first phase, first step, the player acquisition engine, which onboards many players into our Silica Nexus project. Okay, not just the platform, the whole project. And I told you the project was a 10-year project. What we decided to create back at the end of 2014, and we started the company in 2015 to do, the Silica Nexus project is a cross-reality virtual universe with the blockchain backbone to secure the digital assets for the players. And what cross-reality really means to us, we had actually coined the term back then. Think cross-platform, cell phones, tablets, consoles, PCs, arcade machines, and location-based entertainment, full-blown simulators, all interconnected using standard screen interfaces. That's what the majority of interfaces are out there and will be for a long time. Virtual reality interfaces and augmented reality interfaces, all interconnected, being able to work together. And that's the long-term goal, the back end that we have, that we're building towards, to bring all the tools together and allow people, it's more than just the technology and tools. The hard part of this is not interfacing them together anymore. It is the game, the game play, the rationale, the psychology of the how and why. How do you link a cell phone to a simulator, and why would you do it, and how could it be fun? And we look at that in multiple different ways. So think of it like if you were in the Army, okay, or if you're in the military, right? And if you have the binoculars, you're the lookout. If you have the sniper rifle, you're the sniper. If you have the tank, you're the tank commander. And if you have an F-15, you're the fighter pilot, correct? These are all different hardware equipments, but you can all be in the exact same battle at the same time, communicating with each other, orchestrating what needs to go on. So that's kind of like the cell phone versus the simulator. So if you're down in Disney World in a simulator, $20 million simulator, you might be Luke Skywalker in your F-15 fighter, right? Or spinning around or the X-Wing fighter. I don't want to say the X-Wing fighter spinning around, blowing stuff up, but your buddy's back across the country or around the world, and all he has is a cell phone. Well, maybe he's R2-D2 in the back fixing everything as it breaks in your X-Wing fighter. And that's kind of how these things can work together. And we're trying to build that infrastructure. We're not building them like most people are on cross reality stuff. Most people want them to be the exact same interface across every device, and you can't do that. What we're doing is something I came up with called contextual-based interfaces. The context of the equipment that you're entering the universe with is your roles and responsibilities in that universe. So you can have one account, and you might log in one time off your cell phone and do XYZ stuff, and another time you might be at Disneyland and you jump into a $20 million simulator and you can do other cool stuff. But you can still interact with all your friends that have different interfaces.
Some of the most engaging and successful augmented reality games came from exaggerating a little bit relatively simple interfaces and assumptions. One of the first was Ingress, where
Ingress was far more complicated than most of the. But you keep going.
Okay. Another one was Pokemon Go.
Okay. Well, if you compare those two, you realize that Pokemon Go was developed from the Ingress engine, and it took out the complexities of Ingress.
Well, the Ingress, if you wish, the Ingress gameplay was complex, or you could believe that the technology was complex because it represented an advanced technology world with all its factions and the way that you needed to act on the little units. And yes, Pokemon Go, in terms of how you interact with it, is much simpler. And in this sense, the simplest of them all is Zombies Run, where you just have to put on the headset and then you start running. And if you slow down, the zombies eat you. So fantastic concept and very useful too. I would be eaten very fast, but that depends on how fit you are, and I would just succumb. Now, the reason I'm mentioning them is because I think this is true also in the world of NFTs. None of these games use NFTs, right? That some basic concepts can be first tried and then simplified and simplified and simplified. And the simpler it is the simplicity hides the complexity of the underlying engine and the back end and whatever else. And then nothing remains but the beauty of the simplicity. And do you think that Silica neXus is also going to be able to go on that path of making it progressively ever simpler? For example, if I'm not mistaken,
that was one of our challenges in the arcades, was the complexity of wallets, the complexity of transferring NFTs, the speed, the time delays, all of that made it just not functional in a public place. And we had to make it instantaneous and simple for not the 13-year-old and the 14-year-old. They're going to get it regardless. The 60-year-old can use our system. You had to make it simple enough. The hardest part of our system is scanning a QR code to download an app. If you can download an app onto a phone, you can use our system. That is one thing that we had to, the user interface is ultimately important in this to get to the masses. You have to take out all the different complex issues or hide them from the users in order for them to adopt this technology. At the end of the day, they don't need to care about what the technology is. All they need to care about is that thing is cool and I want it. You know, that thing, which happens to be an NFT, is the coolest thing ever, and I want it. And now that I have it, I've got to play it in a game. Let me get the game. You know, that's the simplest thing you've got to reduce it to. But as I think your question was going on a little longer than that. Go ahead. If there's more.
No, that's fine. And of course, there's so much that we can unpack and analyze in this area that we won't be able to stop and just 3-4 hours would pass. But hopefully there will be opportunity to do so on another episode. What I would like to ask you, though, is how are you funding the whole thing? Because you said that the token is not on the exchanges, so you're not funding it through the token. How are you make sure that you can afford to build the kiosks that you put in the Dave and Buster's locations that are frantic to have them?
Well, we primarily have been self-funded to this point. We have had some angel investors come in. We're now doing a WeFunder to help with all of that. And we have been paying ourselves and the developers and all that. We were accruing payroll and paying them with our droids. So okay. We were kind of funding with our droids. So basically, if anybody gets something, everybody gets something, kind of thing. So we've got the WeFunder going on right now. That's pretty good. But to specifically ask the question about the hardware going into the arcades, that is one that the out-of-home entertainment industry kind of solves for us, because you know the large locations are known for the amount of traffic they do and the kind of revenue. So once we prove out the first 10 locations, at that point there are 1,000 different, or not, there's several major funding groups that will just effectively fund each one of the machines as they go in there, in kind of like a factoring way. If you understand the factoring of it, they know that Dave and Buster's, that machine should be producing X amount a month, and it can pay its note off in 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, whatever, or a year. They'll front us the money to put in the equipment, and if the machine isn't performing in that location for whatever reason, then they'll just have us move the machine to another location that will. So it's been, I mean, they've been funding hardware into these arcades for decades. It's a science to them. And we showed them where we wanted to go and how these machines are producing. And they're like, you know, put them in. And as long as the first 10 produce, we can fund every one of them. So very good. So I am sharing the screen of the WeFunder, and anyone who is interested can go to wefunder.com/C4D2. C4D period 2.2. You can't miss the dot. There is a C4D on there that was is there, the dot is in there, I take it, right? It's just real small. Nope. No, the URL does not have the dot. That's interesting, because anyway. Okay. But yeah, go to it works both ways, with or without a dot. You must have corrected that then. That's good. With and without the dot. Yes. Yes. Okay. Yeah. that should give you the whole storyline on where we're at and where we're going with that part. I will say that we've been we have that at a cap according to the rest of the blockchain industry that is ridiculously low. So once we cross our threshold, we probably will be, backing off of it very quickly and then doing a different one at a different threshold. I think you were naming some of the NFT games that the companies have some strong valuations, I'll say at least.
Absolutely.
And once people realize we've got the fastest NFT marketplace on the planet and have fully implemented atomic swaps, and they actually can do one, they'll see the value in the technology we've built. I mean, we've got some great developers, great technologists, and we put a lot of hard work into this and a lot of thought to build it out right.
Wonderful. So, Andrew, thank you very much for being with us here today. It was very interesting to see what you implemented. And of course, after this entire year and more, where you could not execute on your strategy of putting the kiosks in the arcades, now you can. So by the end of this year, and then of course during the next one, you will be able to execute on your strategy fully. So I'm looking forward to receiving an update from you maybe in 6 months or so, and hopefully there will be some very, very interesting numbers.
Yes, we definitely believe so. I mean, things are looking very, very optimistic. Every one of what could have been a downfall for us turned into be an upside, I'll just say. So we'll get into that later.
Wonderful. Andrew, thanks again. And I will welcome you back when we can tell our viewers the next wave of news from Silica neXus.
Thank you very much, David. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone, for following this episode of What is New in the World of Blockchain by Beyond Enterprises. I hope you find it interesting. Our ecosystem of clients comprises all kinds of players, and we love featuring them in these episodes. So feel free to check out past ones and subscribe to our channels. And we will see you soon in the next episode of What is New in the World of Blockchain.